Hey everybody, it's Glenn, back in this video as my reviews of the Spider-Man Marvel Legends Absorbing Man Bathwave continue with Ben Reilly Spider-Man, which is a name only revealed in small print on the packaging back, as on the front it's billed as Edge of Spider-Verse, a billing that sees him paired with and sharing packaging with Spider-Gwen. And of course, Spider-Verse refers to the comic storyline which seemingly saw every Spider character from every continuity ever, including Ben Reilly and Spider-Gwen as we have here, teaming up to defeat a common enemy. Then on the packaging back I do have a bone of contention with the bio, which reads, "When radioactive spiders are turned loose in the lab, these scientists obtain web-slinging superpowers." Which is true of Spider-Gwen, as in her universe, instead of Peter Parker, it was her that was bitten by the radioactive spider. Yet back in main Marvel continuity, and that sentence becomes a bit of a stretch in the case of Ben Reilly, as he has powers because he is a clone of Peter Parker. So while the bio isn't untrue, it does gloss over a lot of history, but then I guess that's gonna happen when you combine and condense two distinct characters into one single sentence. Also on the packaging back is pictured the Absorbing Man Build-A-Figure on the left there, and then the figures you will need to collect to build him are Ben Reilly Spider-Man, as we have here, Spider-Gwen, Morbius, Jack-O-Lantern, Venom, Beetle, and Speed Demon. Here he is out of packaging, and not the first time we are seeing Ben Reilly in this costume in Marvel Legends form, as he first appeared back in 2008, the dark days of Hasbro's Marvel Legends, in the Ares Build-A-Figure wave. Not that this new one isn't a welcome addition, as it is, but I referred to the release of the previous one as being during dark days for many reasons. Among them being the poorest of distribution. I mean, back then I could buy heroin easier than I could buy a Marvel Legend, and also the disappearance from the line of the ankle pivot, which is the quickest way to break my heart. Naturally, this new Ben Reilly Spider-Man reuses the Pizza Spider-Man mold from the Hobgoblin series. And we often like to complain about toy companies cheaping out by endlessly reusing the same old bodies. But if ever a reuse was appropriate, then it's here, when one is the clone of the other, as Ben Reilly is to Peter Parker. Comparing the deco of each, and it might vary from figure to figure, but at least on the versions I have, the deco of my Ben Reilly is a lot more crisp than my Peter Parker Spider-Man. And while the bright red and blue of the costume of the Parker Spider-Man on the left of the screen give it a great air of childhood nostalgia, whereas the darker red and blue tones they've used for Ben Reilly make him suitably more modern and a bit edgier looking. Which is how I would sum up the overall costume design by comic artist Mark Bagley. Reilly wore this costume at the time when he was to become the replacement Spider-Man after Peter Parker was set to walk off into the sunset with Mary Jane to start a family. Then fans flipped, Parker was brought back, and Ben Reilly's stint as Spider-Man wasn't as long as it would have otherwise have been. And then between the Ares and Absorbing Man waves, Ben Reilly has made a much more recent appearance in the form of the Scarlet Spider from the Rhino Bath wave. But then Peter Parker has also assumed the Scarlet Spider alias and costume, so you could argue that it's him under there. One thing these figures do have in common though is the exterior wrist-mounted web shooters. Not concealed under the costume as Peter Parker's were, as in addition to web shooting, these were new and improved and did all kinds of fancy things like shooting small smoke grenades and poison darts. Now taking a closer look to compare those, and it's certainly those of Scarlet Spider that received the best treatment with a metallic silver deco and then some black line work, whereas Ben Reilly Spider-Man's have just been left the flat grey untreated plastic. Perhaps that's just an oversight, or maybe here Hasbro is scrimping to budget for the accessories that are beyond what the Scarlet Spider came with. But before we get to those, in addition to those splayed hands he's been wearing for the duration of this video, he does come with two more interchangeable sets of hands, as did the Scarlet Spider and the Pizza Spider-Man, which are a set of clenched fists and a set of web shooting hands, which you can interchange as you please as to increase the posing possibilities. Then straight from the Amazing Spider-Man Comics Web of Carnage story, we get interchangeable parts that allow us to transform Ben Reilly Spider-Man into Spider Carnage. That transformation is made by virtue of an interchangeable head and set of hands that come via the Marvel Legends Carnage from the Ultimate Green Goblin wave. Again, an appropriate reuse of parts as Spider Carnage is Ben Reilly possessed by the Carnage symbiote. Now, being nitpicky, it is missing something from the Spider Carnage character design, and that's vine-like tendrils that wrap around the limbs. Yet I feel a little bad for even saying that, as the inclusion of this head and set of hands does set this above and beyond many a release we've got, representing a little more bang for your buck, and it's nice to see a sentiment from Hasbro that they have collectors in mind. Moving on to articulation and comparing both heads, they both rotate side to side, then they're both able to look down about the same amount, surprising considering Carnage's big chin, and then they look up about the same amount too. At the shoulder, the arm rotates and then it hinges up to about a right angle to the body. Then it also has that butterfly armpit joint which moves the arm backwards and forwards. Then there's rotation of the upper arm followed by a double jointed elbow. Then all sets of hands are able to rotate at the wrist and then a hinge moving down and up. Then there's waist rotation and then an ab crunch which moves this far forward and then moves this far back. To the disappointment of a number of people at the hips, his legs only move out that far, but they do move plenty forward and they move this far back. There's upper leg rotation followed by a double jointed knee, and at the ankle his feet are hinged moving backwards and forwards, plus he has that crazy ankle rocker pivot that I love. Take that, Aries wave. Alas, with that limited hip articulation, he's not able to take full advantage of that ankle pivot, and this is him standing at his widest stance possible, still with both feet flat on the floor. So all things considered, I'm only 2 reviews into this Absorbing Man wave, and I think it's already shaping up to be a pretty darn solid wave. Really, with this Ben Reilly Spider-Man and its reuse, it could have existed totally in the shadow of the Pizza Spider-Man, yet I like that Hasbro have gone that extra step to provide us with interchangeable parts that not only make the action figure stand on its own 2 feet, but also essentially give us 2 action figures in one. Anyway, click the video on the left if you missed my review of the Venom from this same series, and now to answer a couple of questions that were raised in the comments section of that video. And the answer is yes, the ball on the neck of each is exactly the same size, meaning those heads can be interchanged, but look. As for the tendrils from Agent Venom fitting in the back of this new Absorbing Man wave Venom, let's give it a see. Yep, it does fit, and honestly, I don't think it looks too bad. Anyway, stay tuned for more reviews to come, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.